Hello and welcome to the podcast According to Sci-Faith, where we discuss topics revolving around the compatibility of science and faith. I'm Joshua Göcking and you're listening to According to Sci-Faith. Episode 53, the Physics Nobel Prize of 2024. So this October, the Nobel Prize for the year of 2024 was announced, and the winners were John Hopfield and Jeffrey Hinton, and they were awarded this prize for their discoveries and inventions that helped to put machine learning and artificial neural networks that allowed them to be established. And we shortly want to look at what kind of science this was, or what was behind it, what they developed, what they discovered there. And if we just look into a small computer program, usually it's just a repetition of certain logical steps. So you have certain statements that you can check for and certain loops that you can go through, but it's always the next logical steps, and you can go through that one by one. In our brain, this thing works a little differently. In our brains, we have these neurons, and they are put in layers oftentimes, and in these, and then they are weighted in certain ways depending on how often they are used. So there you can have parallel steps occurring and so on, and this improves a lot, of course, and therefore it was. When the computation power was high enough, one was trying to simulate this in a computer, and this is basically what machine learning is all about. And they try to basically mimic what in our brain occurs. And if you are interested to dive deeper into that, and I have made a podcast episode about this, about machine learning several weeks ago, then you can check this out there. I talk deeper about how all this works out with these layers between these, the decision layers and all this stuff. But what Hopfield was especially awarded for was his so-called Hopfield network, where he basically took something from physics, where you have these potentials, basically like if you would have a marble and you would put it in like some state where it can, some landscape, and it would go to the state of the lowest energy, it would roll down there. And here you have a similar idea. You reduce the energy in the pathways of the where things agree with each other. For example, if you have an image and you want to train your algorithm to find a certain image, then every time where the pixel is at the same place, then you reduce the energy there, because you know, okay, this seems that there's an agreement, and then if you reduce the energy there, then it goes more into like a valley in this landscape, in this artificial landscape that you are creating, and then you can, by minimizing the energy, you can find a way to the right, to the true goal, to the true destination where your solution will be. This was basically the idea behind it. What Jeffrey Hinton did, he used these networks and he applied statistical methods to them in order to find patterns in this, and to let the machine to learn to find those patterns. And those were these were the achievements they have been awarded for. As I said, if you want to dive deeper, I recommend to you my podcast on machine learning, and there are many different sources that you can find in the web where you can get deeper insights into what machine learning is all about. It's a highly interesting topic, and also a very current topic, just if you know about ChatGPT and the stuff that became really present in the last year. So it's a pretty current topic, and this also explains why the Nobel Prize was awarded this year in this category. So these were great achievements in this area, and therefore it is deserved to award them in some way. However, the question has been asked by several scientists also whether the Nobel Prize was the right way to do that. And one way of saying this was basically to say this year the Physics Nobel Prize goes to computer science, because if you see machine learning, artificial intelligence, neural networks, that all sounds great, but it does not really sound like something physicists would do. I mean, it is what physicists do a lot of the time, because it's of huge importance in particle physics and in other branches of physics, where you have a lot of data that you have to find a way to interpret without using too much, without having too much manpower, because this is a lot of data that it's simply not possible that one man can check it all and interpret this data. So you need machinal help, and therefore you need machine learning and these algorithms. So they are of huge importance in physics, but the argument would be that they are not physics themselves in this way. They don't make any these discoveries they made. They don't directly make any or create any discovery about science itself, about physics itself, about particle physics itself. It helps in particle physics, but it does not tell you something about new particles, new physics, and so on. It only helps you in finding ways to measure or to empirically confirm or falsify certain theories and so on. So therefore the question was whether this award is justified, and I think there are two camps basically where scientists say. The one say, okay, it's award for computer science, not really physics, and they criticize it in that way. The others say, yeah, it is a huge part of what physics is today. We need those tools, we need those things to make measurements, to verify our measurements and so on, and therefore it is justified. And also they bring the point that in 1912 the Nobel Prize went to an invention of an engineer about with which lighthouses could be automatically put on and off in some way, and there was some physical mechanism behind it, of course, but still this is also rather something that you would consider to be an engineering achievement, but not really a physics achievement. However, if you put these arguments to the test, then you would also have to say, well, then mathematicians should also be able to get this prize, because a lot of math is basically the language of physics. So any mathematical achievement was of huge importance in physics. So there are many math that goes into physics, of course, and without this groundwork, physics usually needed to come up with this groundwork themselves. And if they didn't, if they had a mathematician who already did the math for them, basically, which they then could apply to their physical problems, then this could be something that could have been awarded too. I mean, if you just look at general relativity, the general relativity is the part of maths that is used there is differential geometry, which was something that was developed in before Einstein looked deeper into this theory, and he looked into differential geometry to describe his theory of general relativity. So in some sense you could then argue that the guys who were behind this the maths as this theory of differential geometry, or this axioms and all this behind this these laws, who developed that, who made these proofs and so on, that they should also be awarded some kind of Nobel Prize maybe. So this is also an argument that you could then do, and then in some sense you would go get somewhere where you ask, okay, what cannot be awarded a Nobel Prize in physics? Okay, time for a short break. In this break, I just shortly want to mention other products that you can have except for this podcast. So for once, if you want to really learn more about the Sci-Faith podcast, I really recommend to you to get my book, Sci-Faith, The Compatibility of Science and Faith, which is available in English as an ebook. You can order it at Amazon. I really encourage you to read it, to get a deeper insight into the ideas behind Sci-Faith, how science and faith can be combined, how they are compatible, and in which way you can find this or combine them to each other. Also, if you like reading novels, especially if you're interested in science fiction, I recommend to you my book Alien Thoughts, which is also about technical topics. Also, these ideas of Sci-Faith are baked into this book and many other ideas. Basically, the whole story of the gospel is told in a way in a science fiction story. So if you are interested in this, I really recommend it to you. This is also available as an ebook, also in English. And I also have, if you are familiar with the German language, I also have a new crime novel. It's called the Odysseus-Liste, where it is about basically a murder that needs to be, or it looks like a suicide, and it needs to be resolved. And there are many also interesting points in it about open source technology and so on. And also it has this idea behind Sci-Faith that you also find in my book, Sci-Faith, the compatibility of science and faith. It's also in there. So I'm always, when I'm writing these books, without this intention of putting these ideas into it, I'm always astonished that later I find that they still are in this, because those are basic principles, and I think it's interesting how they come up basically everywhere in every story and so on. And if you are interested in this, it's a pretty short book. You need to be able to read German, of course. It's only 75 pages or something, so it's a quick read, but it's also really exciting and a really nice story, I think. And this you can also order at Thalia. And I'm looking into, maybe I can do an English version of this. I see what I can do, and if so, then I will announce it as soon as it is possible. Maybe also the books I mentioned right now, except for the last one, they are only available as ebooks. Maybe I will convert them into a print version that you can also get a print version of this. If you would be interested in this, if you say, I really would like to read those books, but I only read print versions, then let me know. Then I know there is a demand for that, and then I will try to put more effort into this endeavor. And if you have any kind of feedback to my books, or want to write a review, or want to get in touch with me, and you can always use the contact form at my webpage, sci-faith.de/en. I really like to hear from you and get any feedback from you, and also ideas for new podcast episodes and so feel free to contact me at any time. And I think the issue is that there is a misunderstanding about what these awards really are and what they are trying to do. So if you have the idea that these awards are simply there to award some achievement, some development, some discovery in itself, then I think that would be mistaken. I think the award is not only to award some achievements, but more than that, to award some progress, to award a breakthrough in a certain area. I think it is really the intention of this prize is to award breakthroughs in a certain area of a scientific field. And for this, I think you can easily imagine that to have found the Higgs boson, for example, was a huge breakthrough, a huge achievement for the field of physics, because it was the last missing piece in the standard model, which have shown that it is there, showed us a new lot of things about the standard model and allowed us to go further than that. But the methods that were developed to get there, they are really important. I mean, you couldn't have come to I think to the discovery of the Higgs boson, you couldn't have achieved that without these machine learning methods and all these analytical tools. You wouldn't have come to that. However, they were not really the breakthrough. They were some tools that you developed on the way to this breakthrough. And even if something that if the thing you achieved, the breakthrough you achieved, even if in the effort that went into it, it could be that this is less effort that went into this individual thing and a lot more effort went into developing the toolkit and developing all these methods and ways to get to this breakthrough. Even then, I think the idea of this prize is still to award the breakthrough, to award what was achieved in a substantial way, and not which methods and tools were developed along the way. So if you like an example where in another way you can see it, for example, when exploring the world and the people who went to see it, to explore the world, to find new continents, to find new spaces, I mean, the people you would immediately come to would be probably Columbus and Captain Cook, because they really discovered a new country or new land. You might argue, okay, for Columbus, the Vikings discovered it even before him. Okay, but he at least rediscovered it. People did not know about this continent before him, and after him, they knew that there was something out there. And for Captain Cook, it was in a similar way. He discovered Australia and other islands there, so that they didn't knew that it was there, but afterwards they found it. And you might well argue that they were not the best seamen that could have been there, that there are way better seamen, way better leadership captains and so on. You could argue all that, but still you remember them for their achievement of having discovered this new land. For example, even with Columbus, if you look into the history, because there oftentimes you think, yeah, they were thinking the earth was flat and Columbus did not believe it and wanted to travel around the world. That's actually not true. People were basically knew that the earth was a sphere. But what Columbus thought was that if he went around the sphere, he would get to India immediately, and the people who were not supporting him, they thought, no, that's not possible because to get to India, it's much farther than Columbus thought it were, and therefore he wouldn't be able to make it because it would be just too much water that he had to cover in order to arrive at India. And if you consider the fact that they were not knowing about America, then you would have to acknowledge that his doubters were actually right, because the earth was actually that big that he would have had driven so much to get to India, and he was wrong because he thought to get to India was just a much smaller space to cover, and he only got lucky because there was this continent America between that he discovered. And so therefore, you see, he actually was even in the wrong, but still he made this great achievement and he discovered America, which he is known for today. And therefore, I think as we see it there, it's not necessarily being right and in this context, or having made the being the best seaman, but it is about having made these great achievements that are awarded in this, or that are remembered also in this. Another example would be, I think, about the moon landing. If you think about the moon landing, Apollo 11 was the one that went to the moon, that landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, where they walked on the moon. But they had later missions to the moon, and one unsuccessful mission to the moon was Apollo 13, where some things went wrong and they were already in space, and some things went wrong, and from some point on it was not anymore about getting to the moon, but it was getting the astronauts safely home, and which was also a pretty big challenge because, as I said, some things went wrong, some things were broken in their rockets and so on, so they needed to find a way to get them back, which was, you might even argue, maybe a greater challenge for the teams and for the people involved there than the moon landing itself, because they had to make quick decisions. They had to find a way with the limited stuff that they had on this rocket and so on. They had needed to find a way to get back and so on. So there was maybe in some degrees it was a greater challenge, but still, if you consider today, it is considered as an unsuccessful mission. It was an unsuccessful mission, and usually it is not awarded. While it's a great thing that they got those astronauts back and it's a great achievement, still there is no award in a sense like it was for the Apollo 11 mission, where they Apollo 11 mission, where they actually went to the moon, and where they actually landed on the moon and actually achieved the goal of the mission. And I mean, if you consider this, then you might say, yeah, that's not always fair. Sometimes the one who would have, from the effort he put in, from the breakthrough in a sense that he got, would have deserved it more than the one who brought this breakthrough that basically put the whole thing to put progress into it. Maybe it doesn't always seem fair, and you might say, what worth are these prizes then? But I think it's also to understand that this prize is not just about awarding certain persons, and it's about awarding progress in this field, which is above individual persons. And I think if you would handle it differently, and if you just say, okay, the one who put in the most effort, the one who did the greatest effort, and so he is awarded no matter what he achieved, then you could easily lose focus about what it's all about getting to this progress, about progressing in science and in all these areas where awards are there for. And this is what these awards try to incentivize. They try to make an incentive for progress, and this is if you just award everything, basically, no matter what it really achieved in a concrete way, then you would I think walk into the danger that you lose sight of the goal of the goal of science itself and so on. Therefore, I think it's justified to award prizes in this way, and therefore I am not really convinced that the award for this way is great as this achievement was, and it was a great achievement. It is maybe as great as an achievement than any other awarded achievement of the Physics Nobel Prize, but still I think it was off topic. It was a way to the breakthrough that was awarded, and not the breakthrough itself. And I think we know even from the Bible, where we know some stories where this is also shown, where we can see this, that not always the one who brings in the most or puts in the most effort or is awarded with the result itself. You can see that, for example, with King David. King David had it really on his heart to have the presence of the Lord living among the Israelites, living among his people. He wanted his presence to be there. And if you know it from the biblical history, they had this tent of meeting during the Exodus, during Moses times, where they had God living in this tent and where he was present there, and they had this Ark of the Covenant where the presence of the Lord was hovering in, and they were, to David's times, they had not really had a place where the presence of the God could be. And so David's aim was to build a place for him, to build a temple, basically, which it later was, a temple for the presence of the Lord. However, the Lord told him, you are not allowed to do that, because he was a lot involved in war to get Israel to peace, basically. And he, therefore, because you have a lot of blood on your hands, the Lord said, you are not allowed to do that, but your offspring will be able to do it. And so King Solomon, he who came after him, he was allowed to build this temple and to introduce this temple, but David already did everything basically to build this up, to have this allow for this temple to be established after him, but he could never see it. And I think here you even see that he put all his effort in, King David put all his effort in to make this possible. However, he could not be the one who to see it, and even more than that, the things he put in, even already, to get to Israel in peace, he of course had to fight in these wars and to get his hands dirty, so to speak, but this already disqualified him from achieving this goal. So by trying everything to achieve this goal, he kind of even disqualified himself to see the result of it, or to reap the harvest of this. What shows also so that it is sometimes something that is beyond ourselves, beyond our abilities to see it, but also as Christians we have this hope that in the eternal we will get the reward, that this efforts that might not be rewarded in this world will be rewarded in the world afterwards. And I think with this hope and with this understanding, it's easier to allow for such prizes, to such awards, to go to breakthroughs, and to go to this, to keep the greater goal in mind, the greater goal, which is of course progress, is going forward in science and of course also in faith. So that's everything for today's episode. I hope you liked it and you enjoyed each part of it. If you want to get in touch with me or discuss a topic or want to give me some feedback, then feel free to contact me using the contact form on my website, sci-faith.de/en. And there you can go to the contact tab and contact me. And if you have any other things or episodes you want to have covered there, or topics you want to have covered, feel free to contact me there. Also, if you are not yet familiar with the format in which this podcast is produced, let me just briefly explain it to you. So there is always at the beginning of a month or of a block, there is a big block of 4 episodes in one thing. It's kind of like a preview, which I call it, where you have the next 4 episodes all in one episode together, combined. And this is for people who like to hear long format podcasts, who have a long way to work or something else, where they can listen to a long episode and can then have a preview of the next 4 episodes all at once, and are completely up to date from the beginning of the block. For those who like their episodes shorter, who prefer it if they have a half an hour or even less of a podcast episode, for those there is every week afterwards will appear a podcast episode almost in that length, and this way I can publish every week a new podcast every episode, and everyone can have it his own way, either once a month a long chunk of content, or once a week a shorter format podcast episode. So I think that's the best way for everyone, and also for me when I'm producing it. Please also note that this is an independent podcast, which means that it is recorded, produced, and marketed by me. So I really need your support in this. So if you like this podcast, then give it a 5-star rating. And if you have the time, even write a review to it. This just helps other listeners to become aware of this podcast. And then people who might be interested in this content can become aware of it. Also, if you have friends who you think would like this content, then recommend it to them and share it with them. Also, you can support me in other ways, for example by reading my blog and subscribing to my newsletter, or even by reading my books, which you can find on Amazon. For example, there is my latest novel out now is Alien Thoughts, which is pretty entertaining from the feedback that I gotten, and so it's also in some way related to science and faith. The topic of it is also in there, but of course you can also read the book to this podcast, Sci-Faith, The Compatibility of Science and Faith, which is also available in English since last year. Thank you for that. And now I wish you a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward for you to tune in again next time.